Hello everyone, Stormy Strike here, and welcome to my annual BreyerFest Surprise Horse Speculation video. In this video, we're going to try and figure out what mold the Gambler's Choice model Hero's Welcome Surprise will be on. Remember that we won't find out what mold and colors this model is on until July 12th, the Friday morning of BreyerFest. As always, this video is just my own guess and speculation. I do not know what the actual surprise model will be, but it's fun to try and figure it out. I base my guesses after previous BreyerFest patterns to determine which molds are possible and which ones are very likely not to be used. I will have a broad list of all the molds that are possibilities, which I will then narrow down further into what I think the top potential molds will be. If you haven't watched my surprise horse speculation videos from previous years, I'll give you a rundown on the factors that help me eliminate which molds won't be used for the surprise model. 3 of those main factors are: 1. Vintage molds will not be used. While the first BreyerFest Gambler's Choice special run was on the old quarter horse gelding mold, all the surprise horse models since then have been on newer and more popular molds. It won't be on a mold that's already a BreyerFest special run or other BreyerFest model for that year. Any mold that's already being used as a special run this year definitely won't be the surprise. It's also highly unlikely that molds used for other BreyerFest models like the Celebration Horse, store specials, raffle models, prize models, etc. won't be used. It won't be on a mold that's already been a surprise horse. Any molds that have already been a surprise horse won't be used as a Gambler's Choice model again this year. There are other factors that can be involved, such as Breyer molds that were just released are likely not to be used, and molds that were used as special runs the previous year. We also know that the surprise horse will be a traditional scale horse model. Small molds and other equids like donkeys and mules are highly unlikely. Maybe one year they will have a mare and foal set as the surprise, but considering they had one last year as a special run and this year as raffle models, it is highly unlikely for 2019 that they'll be doing a mare and foal set for the surprise horse. I do have one more pretty important factor that might determine what the surprise model will be, but we'll get to that later in the video. Now that we got that all out of the way, let's go through the list of all the traditional molds and pick out which ones are possible candidates to being the Hero's Welcome Surprise model. We're going to be going through the always helpful tool of identifyyourbreyer.com to look at all these different molds. On the first page here, I have the Marwari marked down as a possibility because he hasn't been used a lot recently other than the Celebration Horse in 2017. Yet I don't really see him as fitting the theme or being a strong contender. I should also mention that for this part of looking at the molds, I am going to be pretty broad in highlighting any molds I think have even a sliver of a chance at being the surprise. On page 2, I have a couple molds highlighted. One is the Andalusian Stallion. Now this I think is actually a pretty strong possibility. He was used as a limited edition model last year, but not a whole lot recently otherwise, and has a very horse hero feel about him, especially with that proud stance. The Missouri Foxtrotter mold. He hasn't been used much and I think would go well with the theme, but I don't really think he's a strong chance of being used because he's not that popular of a mold. Lastly on here is the Oasis mold. Now we already know she's pretty popular and hasn't been used a whole lot, but she doesn't really fit the theme in my opinion. I think that maybe Breyer will use her at some point as the surprise horse because of her popularity, but I don't think she's going to be used this year. Page number 3, I have the Mustang Mare or Forever Siege and the Ashquire mold. Both of these have been used as regular runs or large limited edition runs recently, both in 2018 and 2019. I honestly don't really feel like they're going to be the surprise, but there is a reason that I put them on here as possibilities, which you will see after I go through the other molds. But for the most part, I don't see either of them being used. The Forever Siege mold especially feels like she's been used a lot recently, especially since that new limited edition decorator model of her just came out too. The National Show Horse mold, she hasn't been used much recently except as a decorator special run in 2017. I feel like she has potential to be the surprise, but maybe not quite popular enough. I do feel like she could very nicely fit the theme, however. Newsworthy I also have marked down as possible, but I'm not really feeling it for him. He's been used as a regular run last year. I don't think he fits super well with the theme, although I guess he kind of does because he's jumping. It's kind of like he's lifting off, so he does have a bit of a superhero vibe to him. But maybe I'm also just biased because he is one of the few molds I don't collect. But I kind of just don't see him as being used as the surprise this year. That doesn't mean he isn't still a possibility. On page number 4, I just have one model marked down, which is Bluegrass Bandit. I know I've set her as my guest for previous years, and now she's back again. She still hasn't been used a whole bunch, and feels like she'd do well with the theme this year too. On to the 5th page, I have the Cantering Warmblood, or True North mold. But this is a little iffy for me because he did just come out as a regular run this year and was used as a store special at BreyerFest last year. He's very good for the theme, but it also feels a little bit too soon for his mold to be used since it came out just in 2017. On to the next page. Cigar is a strong candidate. He has been used a lot, but not super recently. And he hasn't really been used in striking colors. He is oftentimes used in bay and chestnut, and I could see him being in some pretty cool colors and patterns like the surprise horses are usually put in. 2 possibilities are on page number 7. First here is the Connemara mare. She was used as a web special last year and a regular run this year. She may be possible for the surprise, but I don't frankly see it being her this year. I also don't really feel like she fits the theme. Then there is Destato, who is actually a pretty strong possibility in my mind. He was used as a Tractor Supply special run in 2018, but hasn't been a BreyerFest special run since 2013, although he was a store special in 2016. But I think he would fit the theme very nicely. He has a very heroic look to him. On to page 8 with Salinero. Now he did just come out as a regular run in 2018, but it is a very lovely mold with a fair amount of potential to being the surprise. It doesn't feel like he's been used very much recently and could look amazing in some striking colors. On the next page, there is also just one model on this one, which is the Shire Gelding or Shenandoah. I think it's a little too soon for this mold to be used as the surprise, and it was used as a raffle model and regular run last year, and then special run in 2017. But it's still not out of the question that he could be used as the surprise model. On to page 10, I actually have several marked down as possibilities here. First over here is the Gaming Stock Horse, or the Wyatt mold. He was used as a web special last year and as a regular run and special run in 2016. But otherwise, he hasn't been used in the past couple years. I think he's a pretty strong possibility. The Geronimo mold, and again, like with Shenandoah, I don't know if they'll use him as a surprise yet. It does feel slightly too soon, but it is getting to the point where these molds that came out in 2016 are up for the possibility. So I feel like it's a maybe on him, but not a very strong one. The Show Jumping Warmblood mold was used as a clear decorator in 2017 and a Scottsdale Stampede special run in 2008, but we haven't seen him as a regular run or special run in the past couple years. I think he is still a very strong contender and would make a very nice surprise horse. This mold has also already had some main changes, So as a surprise, this mold could have a braided mane version and a loose mane and tail version. This is the mold I personally kind of hope gets to be the surprise horse this year, although I would honestly be happy seeing pretty much any of these molds I'm talking about used as the surprise this year. The Giselle mold, which I know I have said in previous times, and I'm saying it again, that I could see her as being a surprise horse. She still hasn't been used much, but she did just come out as a web special in the America the Beautiful series, which makes me think she is very unlikely to be the surprise this year. On page 11, there's a few molds on here. One is Goffert. I could see him being used. I really could. This model was used as a web special last year, but hasn't been used as a regular run in some time. I could also see him being a nice fit for the theme. The Gypsy Vanner mold is a maybe. They are using the stablemate version of him as a single-day ticket model, and I don't know if that would affect the use of the traditional model or not. The mold hasn't been used a whole bunch, nor has it been a regular run in a little while. If it does end up being this mold, I really hope they use the Gypsy Vanner version of him and not that weird other mold. The strapless mold is a maybe. She was used as a store special last year and a regular run this year though, which makes me think she is less likely to be it. I don't really expect to see her as the surprise, but thought I'd have her on here for the slight chance. On page 12, there is the Huckleberry Bay. Now he has been used a lot, but Breyer does seem to like using this mold. He was used as a web special and Scottsdale Stampede model last year, which makes me think it's not that likely for him to be used again. Right now anyway. Although he hasn't been used a whole lot in the past couple years besides that, so who knows. Then there is Totalis, who I don't know if I'm saying that right. Totalis, I don't know. Anyway, he was used as 2 web specials recently, but I could still really see this mold being a pretty strong possibility for the surprise. He would work for the theme and would look nice in flashy colors. On page 13, there is Vallegro, another Eberl dressage mold that I once again feel like is a strong contender. It would fit the theme, and despite being around 4 years old now, it really hasn't been used as a huge amount as I would have expected. Then there is the Idicus mold. I know this mold was just used as a web special and had the 4 different colors that the Collector Club members voted on last year at BreyerFest. And for that reason, I don't think he is very likely, but I didn't want to rule him out completely. I didn't put the Carrick mold down as a contender because he was just used as a celebration horse last year and is the Justify model. On to the final page now. There is Wixom, who, I don't really see it. She works for the theme, but since they are coming out with a Halloween horse on her this year, I don't think she is as strong of a candidate. Lastly is the Bobby Joe mold. She's possible, but maybe not the surprise. She was used as a Scottsdale Stampede model in 2018 and a web special this year, so I don't think it is that likely. And just so you know, at the bottom of the page that got kind of cut off there is Lonesome Glory and Zippo, both of which we already know won't be used. So that concludes the first overall list of possible molds for the surprise horse, which as you can tell is a lot, over 25 molds. Yikes. Honestly, it's hard to narrow them down this year as the theme is so broad, and who knows what Breyer might have picked. Now before I narrow this list down into my top overall guesses, there is one more factor I need to bring up, and this is the pattern from BreyerFest live auction models. For the sake of this video, we're going to call it the live auction pattern. The pattern is that the surprise mold has been used as a one-of-a-kind model in the live auction the previous year at BreyerFest. For example, in 2018, the surprise was the Smarty Jones mold, and in 2017, there was a Smarty Jones live auction model at BreyerFest. Admittedly, I'm still not completely sold on this pattern, just because there are so many models that are done for the live auction that I find it as more of maybe a coincidence. But it does seem like a pretty faithful pattern in the past several years, so for that reason, I'm going to be taking it into account for my number one guess. Of the list of molds I've picked out as possibilities, the following ones would fit the live auction pattern, as they were one-of-a-kind models sold at the BreyerFest live auction in 2018. I'm not going to be taking into account the models that were in the live auction that weren't one-of-a-kinds, but were like the raffle models or prize models that were put in there. We're only going to be looking at the molds that were used as one-of-a-kinds. So that means the Gaming Stock Horse, or Wyatt, Cigar, Vallegro, Marwari, True North, Wixom, Ashquire, Forever Siege, and Salinero are all molds that were in the BreyerFest live auction in 2018 and could be possibilities as the surprise horse this year. I'll be narrowing that list down even further in a minute, but I have one more point I want to bring up. There is another pattern surrounding the BreyerFest live auction models that I once again think may just be a coincidence, but at the same time has been so consistent that it can't be ignored. That is that the surprise horse mold is not used as a live auction model for the year that is used as the surprise, if that makes sense. For example, last year in 2018, there were no Smarty Jones one-of-a-kind live auction models. The problem with relying on this pattern is that Breyer slowly reveals the live auction models right before BreyerFest, and doesn't even reveal all of them until they are actually seen in person at the event. This makes it a little harder to rely on it to help eliminate molds that won't be the surprise model. But maybe if I have time, I'll do a brief update after some live auction models have been revealed and point out which ones that I guessed are no longer likely based on that pattern. Now I want to give my top 5 guesses for the surprise horse. But I have 3 molds that are like honorable mentions, I guess you could say. They would have been in my top 5, except they don't fit into the live auction one-of-a-kind pattern that I just talked about. Again, I'm still not sure if that pattern is merely a coincidence or not, so I feel like I need to include these 3 molds somehow into my top guesses in a way. So here are my 3 that don't fit the BreyerFest live auction pattern, but I still think are good possibilities, which are number 3, Destado, number 2, the Andalusian Stallion, and number 1, the Show-Jumping Warmblood. They all feel like they could be possible, as they all fit the theme, haven't been overused recently, and are just in the right spot of being not too old or too new. If they would have been used as live auction models last year, they would have made my top overall list for sure. But now onto my overall top list. I'll list them off from my least likely to my most likely guess. All 5 of these models were used as one-of-a-kind live auction models in 2018. They all fit the age range, except for one kind of. They don't feel greatly overused in the past year or 2. Lastly, they all feel like they fit into the horse hero theme nicely. Number 5 is True North, or the Cantering Warmblood. I admittedly don't really have high hopes for this one. He mainly made the top 5 just because he was used in the live auction. His mold feels just a little bit too new to be used, although he does feel like a really great fit for the theme. Number 4, Cigar. While now actually considered vintage, this 21-year-old mold is still popular among collectors and has a spirited attitude and rather heroic stance. Its downfall for not making the top 3 is that another thoroughbred, quote-unquote, Smarty Jones, even though it's actually more of a quarter horse mold, was used as the surprise last year. Now for my top 3. My 3rd place guess is the Gaming Stock Horse, or Wyatt. He came out as a part of the Premier Collection in 2014 and is definitely fair game now to be used as a surprise horse. Despite having just been a Collector Club web special in 2018 and a special run in 2016, he certainly has potential to shine as the surprise horse. His dynamic pose makes him appear to be lifting off the ground. All he needs is a cape and he would make a fantastic horse superhero. Number 2. This one is almost tied for the position as my top guess. It shares a lot of the same qualities with the mold that I got for my number 1 spot, but my number 2 pick is Valegro, another dynamic mold based around dressage instead of Western games. And if you don't already know, the discipline of dressage has a long history with roots in the military dating back 1,500 years. I think a dressage horse would be an excellent fit for the Hero's Welcome Surprise model. The Valegro mold's pose, age, and recent use all line up for it to be a strong contender of being the surprise horse. And now for my top number 1 guess for the Hero's Welcome Surprise Gambler's Choice model. If you haven't guessed already based on the list I've been giving, it is Salinero. I hope I'm pronouncing that right. Salinero is another dressage horse, but an older mold in a different pose. He has a kind and noble face. While he is performing a piaffe, it also almost looks like he's marching to or from battle. The mold has been around for 12 years now, and in that time has been used as a more limited model of runs of 350 and less several times, but he has only been used as a regular run 4 times and a BreyerFest special run once in 2008. While this mold did just come out as a regular run at the end of 2018, I think its lack of widespread use in the past couple years still warrants it as a very strong possibility of being the surprise horse. So there are my top guesses. Again, I feel like Valegro has pretty much just as much of a chance to be the surprise as Salinero. I mostly chose to put Valegro in the 2nd spot because of age. Breyer generally seems to lean towards molds that have been around for a little bit longer, but that doesn't mean the newer molds also don't have a chance, considering Latigo was the surprise in 2017. Now, don't leave yet, because I do have another area of speculation surrounding the Hero's Welcome Surprise to go over. I really don't know what the surprise model might end up being, and I almost have the feeling that my guesses this year are going to end up being completely off, and Breyer will be throwing us more of a curveball since last year's surprise was pretty obvious. But then again, who knows? I feel like I put a lot more thought into this than Breyer does in picking what the surprise will be, which I'm just kidding about, by the way. I know a lot of time is spent in designing and planning out products, and I'm sure they have their own reasons for the choices that we don't know about. But anyway, let's move on to the final topic of speculation. And that is colors! Last year was the first year there were 5 different colors for the surprise horse instead of 4. They could be doing that again this year, or they could be going back to 4 colors, but I'm guessing it's more likely they will be using 5 colors now, especially if they keep increasing the quantities of the surprise horse. It's possible that there may even be 6 colors, which I will explain because I don't remember if I mentioned this already in my thoughts about the BreyerFest special runs video, but I don't think I did. So 5 years ago, in 2014, BreyerFest celebrated their 25th anniversary. This year, they are celebrating their 30th anniversary. A part of that celebration in 2014, they ended up having a surprise where each of the special runs had a silver charm variation limited to 25 models. These special models were put into the special runs at random, so anyone buying a special run didn't know if they would end up with one of the rare models or not. The question is if Breyer will be doing the same again this year for the 30th anniversary. It's not as big of an anniversary milestone as ones like the 25th or 50th, etc. And unlike in 2014, this year's theme isn't revolved solely around it being an anniversary. So I think it's a real toss-up on if they will put in some special random models into the special runs this year or not. I wanted to bring it up as a possibility, whether or not it will actually happen, but it is something to keep in mind. Now back to the general color speculations for the surprise horse. We know pretty much for certain that one or two of the models will be a paint because there has always been one or two Pinto pattern models in the mix. It's also very likely that one of the variations will be an Appaloosa and another a solid color. A decorator is also very likely. It's hard to say what colors the models will be beyond the pattern variations that we can expect, but it seems like Breyer often likes to throw a Palomino in there, or a buckskin or a Perlino, some kind of model on the tan side of the color scheme, so I would expect that we're going to get a Palomino or something a little similar again this year. If they end up doing a decorator, I do have some guesses for that. One is that I wouldn't be surprised if it was a clear wear, since two of the last times they had a surprise decorator variation, it was a clear wear model. Second is that a decorator will probably be cohesive with the Horse Heroes theme, of course, but that might mean they'll do something with like stars and stripes, or maybe they'll do something more along the lines of comic books and superheroes. The name and logo hint more towards the former, but you can never really tell with Breyer, especially since all their other special runs are named after superhero characters. Either way, we can expect that the decorator will be one of the lower run variations of the surprise, since decorators are generally not as popular with collectors as the realistically colored models. I think that's pretty much it for what I have to say about the Heroes Welcome Surprise model. There was even more I could have talked about, believe it or not, but I decided to cut it for time, and because of the live auction pattern, the other topics I was going to bring up didn't really affect my top guesses in the end anyway. Now it's time to hear from you guys. This is all just my own guess and speculation for the surprise horse, and I definitely don't get it right every year. Let me know in the comments what mold you think the surprise horse will be. Also, feel free to give any other speculations, like what colors you think it will be this year, or if Breyer will be doing some kind of special color variation mixed in for the 30th anniversary of BreyerFest or not. You can just let me know of any and all your thoughts in the comments down below. Thank you guys for watching. More about BreyerFest and my own trip to it will be posted soon. Don't forget to follow me on Instagram for the little updates and photos I don't get the chance to make videos about. I hope you all have a fantastic day, and I will see you in the next video. Bye everyone!